June 22, 1942. Near Burhaakheim, North Africa. Late afternoon heat shimmering over a dead flat ocean of sand. A column of German Panzer IVs grinds forward, their engines coughing dust into the sky. The crews inside are sunburned, confident, and tired in the way only seasoned tankers can be. Oberfeld Wibble Karl Voss pops open his hatch, squinting toward a wrecked trail of British and American armor scattered across the dunes. One tank catches his eye, a squat, boxy machine with a rounded turret and tracks half buried in sand. An American M4 Sherman, freshly delivered and already destroyed. Voss chuckles and taps the turret rim. Die Amerikaner bauen Spielzeug, he mutters. The Americans build toys. His gunner laughs back. Word has already been spreading across Panzer regiments. The new American tank is clumsy, undergunned, too tall, too thinly armored. A tank built by a nation that has more factories than experience. Something to be mocked, not feared. Another Sherman sits cracked open nearby, its ammunition cooked off, the turret blown askew. The Panzer crew circles it like hunters inspecting an inferior kill. One of them points at the armor plate, dented, scorched, hopelessly penetrated. This is what the world's great industrial power sends against us. Someone spits into the sand. And for a moment, it's hard to argue. The early Shermans arriving in North Africa are being thrown straight into Rommel's grinder. Many crews barely know the feel of their own controls before meeting the veteran Panzers waiting for them. The desert wind whistles across the dunes. You can almost feel the dry heat radiating off the wrecks. Smell the burnt oil. Hear the distant artillery thumping like a heartbeat. To the Germans, it seems obvious. America can assemble tanks, but they can't build good ones. Voss climbs back into his Panzer IV, still grinning as the column rumbles forward. The Sherman is already fading behind them, swallowed by sand and distance. But what none of them know, not Voss, not his gunner, not any of the commanders writing smug field reports about the inferior American tank, is that thousands of miles away. In a Detroit office filled with blueprints, cigar smoke, and sleepless ambition, one man is about to change everything they think they understand. A man who believes that the Sherman is not the final product, but only the beginning. Madge, Jen, Gladeon, M. Barnes, and in a few short months, the mockery will stop. Not because the Sherman becomes invincible, but because America becomes something the German army is not prepared to face. A nation that can build faster than they can destroy. The desert sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the wrecked Sherman, a symbol for now of weakness. But soon, those shadows will stretch across Europe. Carried by an army of tanks no one can stop, and the Germans will see the truth. They weren't laughing at the Sherman. They were laughing at the first sign of their own downfall. Night settles over Detroit like a heavy steel curtain. It is October 1942, and inside the massive Chrysler tank arsenal, the air vibrates with a rhythm that never stops, presses slamming, welders hissing, cranes shrieking as they swing entire turrets through the air. Sparks drift like fireflies across the assembly line. Madge, Jen, Gladeon M. Barnes stands on a steel catwalk high above the factory floor, his uniform coated in a thin layer of metallic dust. He is not smiling. Barnes almost never smiles. His eyes move like a machine themselves, scanning, evaluating, recalculating. Below him, an M4 Sherman rolls off the line. Then another. 30 minutes later, another. Workers say Barnes can tell if a tank is out of tolerance by the sound of its engine echoing through the factory rafters. He lives on black coffee, stubbornness, and a belief that war will not be won by the best tank, but by the most tanks. Tonight, a young engineer hurries beside him with a clipboard full of production notes. General, some officers in North Africa are complaining about armor failures, penetrations at long range. They say the Shermans are. Barnes cuts him off with a curt gesture. I know what they're saying, he growls. I know what they don't understand. He leans over the railing as another, Sherman clatters forward under its own power, fresh paint still glistening. "This tank isn't perfect," he says quietly, "but buildable. It's shippable. It's repairable. And I can give Eisenhower thousands, so the Germans can barely field hundreds." He turns back to Ward, the engineer. "That's why we'll win." Barnes isn't wrong, and deep down, the armored officers fighting Rommel are starting to realize it too. The Sherman is reliable. It's easy to fix. Its gun can be upgraded. Its engine starts every morning, even in the freezing desert dawn. And most importantly, it can be mass-produced at a scale the Germans cannot even imagine. Inside the arsenal, workers move with a precision that feels choreographed. Teams swap out engines like pit crews. Welders reinforce the glacis plate. Inspectors glide along tracks, checking tolerances by touch. This isn't merely manufacturing. This is mobilization, the transformation of a nation into a war machine. Every day, 24 hours without interruption, a new batch of Shermans emerges from the assembly line like a steel tide forming in slow motion. Ford, Fisher Body, pressed steel. Baldwin, dozens of factories join the push. Soon, whole trains will be hauling tanks east, west, and straight to America's ports. And across the ocean, German intelligence officers begin noticing something strange. Aerial photos show tank depots swelling. Shipping reports show convoys stacked with armor. Officers whisper that American production numbers must be exaggerated. No country can build that many tanks that fast. No country ever has. But America isn't building for parity. Barnes is building for inevitability. Back in Detroit, another Sherman roars to life and rumbles off the line, tracked by Barnes' unwavering eyes. He mutters something under his breath, almost a private vow. They'll stop laughing soon, as the arsenal lights flicker against the night sky. It becomes clear. This is no longer about individual tank duels in desert gullies. 'Tis about a flood forming on the other side of the ocean. A flood that will sweep across North Africa, across Italy, across France, and all the way to Berlin. The German crews mocking the Sherman have no idea that the tank they ridicule is about to arrive by the tens of thousands. And once the tide begins to rise, no amount of German steel will hold it back. February 14, 1943, Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. A cold wind sweeps through the jagged mountain corridor as American forces brace for the hammer they know is coming. Engines idle nervously. Dust hangs low. Somewhere beyond the rocks, German panzers move like predators. Captain James "Jim" Reynolds, commander of a tank platoon in the 1st Armored Division, wipes grit from his goggles as he peers across the narrowing pass. His Shermans, scuffed, sand-worn, patched with whatever the crews could weld on, sit in a staggered line behind him. He doesn't know it yet, but this battle will become the moment German commanders begin to notice something they never expected. A radio crackles Panzer IVs approaching, multiple and fast. Then the first shell slams into the ridge, the opening roar of the German assault. Shermans lurch forward, engines screaming, and the battlefield transforms into a storm of fire and shrapnel. Reynolds' gunner swings the 75mm toward a silhouette sliding between boulders. On the way, the shot sails wide. The reply doesn't. A Panzer IV puts a round straight through the Sherman on Reynolds' left. Ammunition cooks off instantly, a blinding flash of fire as the turret blows skyward. The Germans push aggressively, confident as always. They've beaten Shermans before. They expect to beat them again. But something is different this time. Reynolds calls out coordinates. His remaining tanks reposition with a smoothness they didn't have months ago. Crews are learning. Tactics are adapting. New armor kits are arriving. American command is no longer scattering tanks in penny packets. They're massing them. The next Sherman volley hits hard. One Panzer IV stutters to a stop. Black smoke curling from its rear grille. From the German perspective, it is a shocking sight. Inexperienced Americans shouldn't be hitting this accurately. Or this fast. Lieutenant Erich Albrecht, watching from his Panzer hatch, narrows his eyes. "These aren't the same fools from December," he mutters. His gunner confirms the impossible. There are more Shermans than intelligence reports predicted. Many more, and they keep arriving. One comes grinding around the ridge, then another, and another. A creeping dread settles into German stomachs. Where are they all coming from? The Shermans aren't superior in armor. They aren't superior in optics. But they are, suddenly, everywhere. Reynolds' platoon pushes back with a momentum the Germans didn't expect. A coordinated flank drives wedges into their advance. For a brief moment, under the smoke-filled sky, the underdog Americans gain the upper hand. Albrecht sees a new wave of Sherman's crest, a hill, a full-armored company driving in formation, dust boiling behind them. "Unglitch," he whispers. Impossible, but it isn't. It's Detroit. It's pressed steel. It's Chrysler. It's General Barnes' relentless assembly lines echoing across continents. The thundering heartbeat no. German tanker can hear from Tunisia, but they're about to feel it all the same. Artillery begins to pound the pass, and the battlefield collapses into chaos. Reynolds' forces take losses. They fall back. But the Germans don't surge forward with their old confidence. They hesitate. Because for the first time in the Desert War, they're seeing something they never accounted for. The Americans can replace their losses. The Germans cannot. A single destroyed Sherman can be swapped out in days. A single destroyed Panzer IV might never be replaced. Albrecht realizes it the moment he watches two burning Shermans being towed away while fresh ones thunder past them like reinforcements summoned on command. He grips the hatch rim tighter, the first seeds of dread taking root. If they can send tanks like this now, what happens when their factories reach full speed? The question hangs in the air. And the answer will hit Germany far harder than any American shell. Because Kasserine is not the turning point, it's only the warning. Ahead lies Sicily, Italy, Normandy, battles where the mockery ends. And the reckoning begins. June 7, 1944, Normandy, France. One day after D-Day, a gray, misty dawn clings to the hedgerows as American armor pushes inland. Mud splashes, engines snarl, and the countryside crackles with distant gunfire. The land smells of damp earth and cordite. A column of Shermans from the 2nd Armored Division grinds forward. Their hulls streaked with seawater and soot from the chaotic landings at Omaha and Utah. The crews are exhausted, but they are not alone. Behind them, through the drifting fog, come more tanks, and more, and more. It feels endless. Sergeant Tom Weaver, leaning from his turret, watches another company of Shermans rumble past on a parallel lane. "Hell of a sight," he mutters. It is more than that. It is the physical manifestation of what Gladeon Barnes promised, quantity as a weapon. And for the first time, German units catch a glimpse of what they're truly up against. German shock at Normandy. Oberleutnant Martin Kretschmer, commanding a Panther in the 12th SS Panzer Division, peers through his optics at the advancing Americans. He expects the usual small groups of Shermans probing blindly into the hedgerows. But what he sees instead drains the warmth from his face. Dozens, columns, waves, a conveyor belt of armor rolling inexorably inland. He has fought the Red Army. He has seen desperate Soviet tank charges. But this is different. The Americans aren't charging, they're arriving. Endlessly, the Panther crew stares in disbelief as replacement Shermans appear within hours of others being knocked out. Some burn out in the fields, their thin armor glowing red, but fresh tanks simply detour around them and keep going. Kretschmer breathes. Das kann nicht wahr sein. This cannot be real, but it is. And it keeps getting worse. The unseen weapon, logistics, what the German tank commanders dan. TC is the looming specter behind the Sherman columns, the sprawling machine of U.S. logistics humming like a living organism. The Red Ball Express, endless truck convoys hauling fuel, ammo, spare parts. Forward repair depots capable of rebuilding a Sherman turret in hours. Engineer battalions converting muddy fields into temporary tank parks overnight. A Sherman lost at dawn might be back in action by dusk with a new crew and a new engine. A Panther lost at dawn. Gone forever. The imbalance is nightmarish. Even the German High Command begins to take notice. Reports flood Wehrmacht headquarters. American tank strength increasing beyond estimates. Enemy able to replace losses. Rapidly, Sherman production appears unlimited. One general writes in his diary, "We kill 10 and 20 return." It is not an exaggeration. The psychological break by late June, frontline German officers feel something they have not felt before against Western allies. Not fear, not even frustration. Futility. Every destroyed Sherman is a brief victory, drowned instantly by the arrival of 3 more. Barn-burning accuracy from Panther guns can't stop the swelling tide. Captain Weaver sees the effects firsthand as his column pushes toward St. Lay. They take losses, but their advance doesn't slow. Fresh platoons fold into the line seamlessly. Fuel trucks snake through the hedgerows like arteries feeding a giant. The Americans keep coming. And from a ridge overlooking the advance, Kretschmer grips his binoculars with whitening knuckles. "This is not war," he whispers. "This is production." Nearby, one of his crewmen mutters the first quiet admission any of them have ever dared voice. If this continues, Germany cannot win. Kretschmer doesn't answer. He doesn't need to, because deep in his chest, he already knows the truth. And yet, this is still not the moment everything collapses. That moment is waiting months ahead in the cold forests of Belgium, where the Germans gamble everything on one final offensive and discover, too late, that America's factories have already sealed their fate. December 18, 1944, Ardennes Forest, Belgium. The world is white and silent, buried under fresh snow. Pine trees sag under the weight. The cold stings like needles. And through that frozen stillness, the thunder of engines begins to rise. Sherman's entire battalions of them push through the forest roads toward the front. Their breath clouds in the icy air. Tracks grind across black ice. Headlamps flicker under blackout covers. Inside the hulls, crews shiver, clutching blankets and metal canteens warmed over engine blocks. They are heading straight into the largest German offensive since 1940. The Battle of the Bulge. German confidence returns briefly. On the other side of the forest, Auber's Friedrich Mahler stands beside his King Tiger, a monster of steel and engineering, its massive 88mm gun pointed west. His men huddle around him, their breaths steaming in the dark. For the first time in years, German troops feel something like hope. Hitler has thrown the last of Germany's armored might into this offensive. Panzers, Panthers, King Tigers. Veterans whisper that the Allies are overextended, unprepared, resting easy for the winter. And for a moment, they believe the old narrative again. The German tank is superior. The Sherman is a toy. Mahler steps up onto his Tiger, scanning the snowy tree line. If we reach the Meuse, he tells his crew, the Americans will break. He doesn't know he's repeating a fantasy. Because just beyond the horizon, American logistics, the same unstoppable engine forged by Barnes and perfected through 2 years of war, is about to crush the last spark of German hope. The Shermans arrive faster than the Germans can kill them. The German assault slams hard into thin American lines. Towns are swallowed in hours. Roads vanish under the treads of German armor. At first, it works. Shermans burn in the snow. Infantry scatter. Radio operators scream for reinforcements that aren't there yet. But then, they start arriving. One company of Shermans, then a battalion, then 2, then more. They arrive at night, engines howling through frozen valleys. They arrive at dawn, rolling out of the mist in long shadowed columns. They arrive so fast that German officers accuse American commanders of hiding reserves. But these are not reserves. These are replacements. Mallory watches 2 burning Shermans smoldering beside a crossroads and then sees 6 more crest a ridge. Behind them, an entire armored division grinding forward like a steel glacier. He grips his binoculars harder. "This cannot be the same division," he mutters. But it is. Shermans he destroyed yesterday are replaced today. Shermans lost this morning are replaced this afternoon. Shermans hit by Tigers are repaired overnight by field depots humming day and night. The Germans know how long it takes them to replace a tank. Weeks, months, sometimes never. The Americans, hours. The breaking point, December 22nd, near Bastogne. Snow falls in heavy sheets, muffling the sounds of battle. A German staff officer bursts into Mallory's command post. "Sir, our armored units report they cannot advance. They're running out of fuel." The Americans, he hesitates, unable to grasp the scale of it. They keep arriving. We destroy 15, 20. And the next morning, more Shermans appear than before. Mallory closes his eyes. This is the moment he understands. Not in a dramatic explosion. Not in a Tiger versus Sherman duel. Not in a clash of giants. But here, in a cold tent with a map spread across a field table. Germany's armored commander finally sees the war for what it has become, a production contest. One Germany can no longer compete in. He whispers a sentence his adjutant has never heard from him before. Der Krieg ist verloren. The war is lost. Why? Because no matter how good the Tiger is, no matter how skilled the crews, no matter how fierce the offensive, America can build more tanks than Germany can destroy. And now, the Germans know it. The flood rolls on. By January 1945, the Ardennes offensive collapses. German tanks sit frozen and abandoned, out of fuel. American Shermans push past them by the hundreds, engines roaring triumphantly through the ice. The last gamble has failed. The mockery from 1942, the laughter over toy tanks, is gone, replaced by something colder, heavier, inescapable. The realization that the Sherman was never the weapon, the factory behind it was. As American armor pours toward the Rhine, snow whipping over their hulls like white fire, the final truth of the war settles across Europe. The Germans were never fighting one tank. They were fighting all of them. Every factory, every welder, every assembly line, every ship carrying them across the sea. A war decided not by the best machine, but by the most machines. The Shermans roll on into Germany, engines growling like the voice of inevitability, and the laughter dies forever. End.